Yeah, Scott, I figured out what I was doing wrong.
Yeah, what was it?
I turned the volume down. Crazy.
Okay, now you're like blasting me out, so I need to turn mine down.
All right, hang on just a second. And I could probably turn my volume down a little. All right.
It doesn't matter. I can fix it and post. Everything's a separate track. This is Riverside, man. So I have the same clean shirt.
Yeah, man. Eric sent it to me. He sent out one of my shirts to somebody and it got lost in the mail. And so I gave the guy a shirt. He sent me this. So I was like, yeah, win-win.
You know, it helps to know people, doesn't it? Did you guys hear that Crisis?
I haven't.
Man.
Dude, I am so busy. It's ridiculous.
I know. But this one song that I just put up today, you got to hear it.
Right.
It's based on this dude, right, was being ripped off, he felt, in a real estate deal in Indianapolis in 1977. So he gets a shotgun and ties a dead man trigger around this dude's neck. So he's got the shotgun right at his head. If the police shoot him, if anybody tries, if either of them slip on a banana peel, the dude's head is getting blown off. The band blew me away. It's probably going to be number 3, number 4 on my April list. It's hardcore doom. So
that's cool.
It's the best mixture of hardcore and doom I've ever heard.
Okay, cool.
They maintain a groove unlike it. I mean, it kind of reminds me of late 90s Deftones, how once they hit that zone, nobody was better than Deftones.
Let's do a show on how much Rich doesn't like the Deftones. That'll be the next show.
Hey,
we do.
You know what, Rich? I'm not a big Deftones fan either. Although
I'm from Sacramento, it's required.
Oh, see, my Sacramento band is Cake. That's my Sacramento band.
Oh,
we need to do a special segment on Cake.
Heavy
I
shit.
just bought a Cake record. There's a new Cake. I just bought a Cake record on my vacation.
They're the best.
An incredibly underrated band backing that guy.
Oh, they were so sarcastic and snide.
I saw them last summer. They played in Denver. It's the first time I'd seen them in 20 years. And it was so cool to see them again. But the last time I saw them, they Cheap Trick and the Detroit Cobras opened for them.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was a fun show.
Yeah, it was great. The Detroit Cobras that was Rachel was at that show. So
I'm trying to wrap my head around that lineup, and I think you could pay me $20 to see that lineup, but I don't know that.
Wow.
Dude, Detroit Cobras rule.
I feel like that was a Cheap Trick shot, and now we're going to have another show.
Oh my god! Because Live at Budokan is like one of the most influential albums I've ever like.
It's like not live.
I don't care, dude. The guitar's
not live.
So here's like that album was like a life changer for me, man. That freaking guitar solo and Need Your Love, and like Rick Nielsen's just killing it. Oh,
it's fake.
I don't care, dude. I was 12 years old. I didn't know what fake was.
You do now.
It got me into guitar rock, man. You know, like next summer I was seeing my first concert, Joe Walsh. So it like ramped up pretty quickly.
Look, so when I'm practicing my bass, which isn't nearly often enough, I Want You to Love Me is what I put on, what I play when I'm like warmed up and I'm ready to get to the heavy stuff. That is a rockin' song. It's one of the best songs ever written. It's perfect.
Right on.
It's exactly what it says it is. But it's the fake Japanese audience, the screaming. Like, this is an unknown band, right? Nobody knows who Cheap Trick is.
Dude, it's like the Beatles are there.
And it's like the Japanese girls are like taking their shirts off. I don't think so. If you go to a Japanese, like, let's say Yob, or somebody went to Japan, here's my imitation of a Japanese audience. Respectful, quiet, alert.
Yeah. I've been to Japan. I'd go with that.
Unless it's Boris.
I love Boris. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. I'm killing your banter. I love everything except the customers I had in the weed shop today.
The only thing we are like, are we in the way, Rich? I mean, you're usually the aggressive one, writing all your blurbs.
I'm just trying to dissect your hatred of Cheap Trick, and
I was kidding.
As we then go down the path of you and fake live albums, we'll have to, my wife listened to our show today, and she's like, I don't know why you're talking to that guy. He doesn't like Kiss. And how are you doing that? I'm like, it's okay. I'm dealing with it. I'm going to deal with it. I'll give him one. But
okay, one. So here's Kiss, right? So the Destroyer album comes out in 1975, and I have joined the Kiss army. I am there, right? I'm ready to get the Kiss lunchbox.
I get this.
And then Black Sabbath released Sabotage, and I listened to Sabotage one time, and I grew up 10 years. My hair turned gray. It's no joke. Like, I was a huge Kiss dude. I mean, I'm like when Kiss Alive, hit, and they've got rock and roll all night, party every day. I'm all, and then I heard Sabotage and went, okay, it screwed me up for life. It did. Nothing but respect for Kiss.
Yeah, I like Kiss too, man. I mean, I'm
going to have to say, Kiss is influential, not musically, but they're every bit as influential as the Beatles. And you cannot watch Castle Rat and not think back to Kiss and think back to Alice Cooper.
Yeah, anybody who has a stage show like that is
Kiss was amazing. The best businessmen in the business.
Yeah, and a super nice fella.
What's that disco song? I Was Made for Loving You.
Oh, they play that at work. They're like, "You like Kiss?" I'm like, "And this is the song you play?"
I love that song.
Oh. Dude, they got to play Deuce or something.
Every band in that era had their disco song.
Sure.
Every rock band had something.
Sabbath, the Rolling Stones had a whole disco album.
Yeah.
I love it.
Rod Stewart had some disco going on back then.
You are really digging a hole, dude.
My musical sphere of love is way too big. Way too big. We're not even going to talk about who my all-time favorite band is, which has nothing to do with anything that we talk about here.
Who is your all-time?
My all-time favorite band is the indie rock band from Dayton, Ohio, Guided by Voices.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How do you know them?
Huge Guided by Voices.
How do you know them?
When I was in college, I worked at a record store, and one of the guys there introduced me to them. And
like literally introduce you to the band?
No, I wish if I wouldn't know what to say to Bob Pollard if I met him today. One of the best songwriters that have ever walked this earth is Robert Pollard.
I have to agree with you 100% on this.
I mean, like
I got nothing.
Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Guided by Voices.
And the other band that gets me in trouble sometimes is my love for Duran Duran. My love for Duran Duran knows no bounds.
The guitar player is so good.
That's another thing you don't know about me.
There isn't a thing about Duran Duran that isn't more intelligent than everybody else, better produced than everybody else, with one exception. And to me, Duran Duran is an Ultravox derivative. To me, it is absolutely Midger and Ultravox. To me, that's who I bow down to when it comes to synth pop from Great Britain.
I think my love of Duran Duran is going to kind of come into our discussion today about what we're talking about because of some of the things that I'm hearing on that record that
because Messa's album is the equivalent of a doomed Duran Duran album. It's I'm going to tell you, so I've warmed up to it a little bit. But it is by far my least favorite Messa album. The
more I hear it, the less I like it.
I think I'm going to be the voice of the folks who dig this record. I am the other way. I was fine with the other Messa records, but I'm like, but I could take them or leave them. I know a lot of people love them. To me, it was a little. I don't almost pretentious doom, like having to throw some jazzy things in here and having to do this and do that. It was too fancy for me. This record comes out, sounds like I'm listening to the Chameleons or Susie and the Banshees for the first 3 songs. And I'm like, I'm in. This is the most accessible, and accessible doesn't always mean great, but this is the most accessible record that Messa has put out. And to me, the the one I can listen to the easiest and enjoy the most without thinking that I'm being overwhelmed by people trying to be overwhelming, if that makes any sense.
Oh my gosh, Rich. So
Well,
I will tell you. I will tell
thank you for the discussion tonight.
But I will tell you. So I want my music to be more difficult to listen to than this album is to listen to. It's like it's so slick, and you know, like, man, like, I come from Doom, from the punk rock side of things, you know, I like some really lo-fi stuff and stuff that sounds a little rough around the edges. And to me, I just get a sense of like overproduction. And I also, to me, like, there's a catering to the mainstream here that I'm hearing. Like, I played this album in my shop today, and I work with a bunch of kids in their 20s and early 30s. And man, they all were like, wow, they really, really like this. And so I think from that end, that's really positive, because maybe that's a gateway to some heavier music. But for me personally, I mean, like, one of my favorite albums the last couple of months was the Freaks album. It's like the exact opposite. And obviously it's not a Doom album, but, you know, just so that may be tainting how I'm looking at this album as well. But the slick production, there's the last song is probably the song. I probably hate that song more than any song I've heard in the last few years. I don't like that song really
Thicker
at
Blood?
all. Yeah, I don't like it. It's just, so I just think so I listened to that album today, and then I immediately put Psalm's new album on.
Oh, that's not fair.
Why not? Why isn't it fair? Because it's much fucking better? Because every part, like, and I know it's subjective, and I know music's subjective, and for me, slick production, vocals that are overemphasized, I just don't like. For me, that's just not what I really like.
The funniest thing about this is your feedback versus my normal feedback. The reviews that I write, the thing that gets me and that makes me the most angry are overproduced records. I somehow wind up with a bunch of like Frontiers records that I like, old hair metal bands that are back for Frontiers, and the production, like, it makes my head want to explode. And the band I mentioned earlier, Guided by Voices, their first like 6 records are recorded on a boombox. So like I totally get the lo-fi, and I actually get very aggravated with overproduced records. But something about this one, it's got to be that kind of post-punk 80s vibe thing that I love so much, with like Sisters of Mercy and Susie and Chameleons and stuff like that I think is drawing me in here. And there's also, like, on one of the songs I made notes, the dress reminds me of like something out of Twin Peaks. And again, you're like talking to me with all my favorite things with this record. So I feel like I get where you're coming from with that. But and normally I'd be on your side with this, but for some reason I'm hearing the things that I enjoy are outweighing my normal frustration with overproduced stuff, if you will.
It seems like that album for me is always just on the edge of what I want to hear. It's like, if you had just pushed it a little more or taken just a little bit back. But yeah, I respect where you're coming from, Rich. Absolutely. And, you know, I don't want to hear albums that necessarily sound like they were recorded on a boombox when I'm listening to a Doom, album. So, but yeah, man, it's just like when you were listening to Susie and the Banshees, I was listening to The Clash and the Dead Kennedys, and, you know, man, so it could just be my ear at this point. But it just doesn't settle well with me. Like, I really like my vocals like pulled way back into the mix of the record, and they seem to be riding a little high for me. Like Sidewinder's album last summer, like I just couldn't even listen to it because the vocals are just, that's not what I want to listen to. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the album. I just don't think it's a heavy underground album. I think it's something else.
No, it's not.
I kind of look at this Messa album. It's a good album. I mean, like, the songs are well constructed, but like, I just don't think it's like a heavy underground album. Like, it's not what I would like have pulled out to introduce someone to the genre.
Wow. I thought I was going to be the extreme, and I'm kind of like the middleman right now. First, I want to get this off my chest. I think the big winner here is Metal Blade. I think Metal Blade, and I take a look at their roster's way better than I thought it was. I didn't realize they have a Legion. I didn't realize they had Mantar, who I've seen, and are like Conan cranked up one notch higher. I think this is a great move for Metal Blade. This is not a Doom album. There's no possible way, I think, that anybody could argue that this is in any way Doom. With the exception of Thicker Blood, the last song, the one that you hate. It's like that's the one
I think
song.
that's why I hate it, man. I think that's why I hate it, because it's like that kid who's trying too hard.
And it's funny how you both say that. And I need to attack Rich rigorously for this. No, I think you heard, right, with early Mesa, and I mean, I'll probably edit that out, but
yeah, that's supposed to be my line.
I discovered Mesa off Dun Stone's trip to Italy.
Okay.
And the bands that were on there, and Mesa was just like the world stopped. And then I got Feast for Water. And at first, my first spin on it, I was kind of like, there's a Fender Rhodes, she's singing over it. And then on the second round, She Knows, which goes into Tulsi, came on. And I kid you not, I just listened to that like 17 times in a row, and because my mind was blown. I had never heard anything ever that young, that brash, that arrogant, that would pull off that transition between those two songs. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard. And if I'd been writing, back then, that was my number one album of the year. It's an album I still go back to. I went to Belfry, and I get what you mean by it sounds like they're trying too hard, because they don't come from the heavy underground. Yeah. Like, if you look at their background, Alberto has a master's in music. They come from composition and pop, and obviously,
but that explains a lot to me. And honestly, I'm not as knowledgeable about the band as you guys are.
Oh, I'm one of those guys that when their van broke down, they were in an accident. I think it was 2 years ago. I sent them like $50, and then Sarah sent me a handwritten letter.
That's awesome.
Like my attachment to this band is deep. Like when the very first thing that Julie wrote for the blog as Newbie Doomer was Mesa, and so when I hear this album, my heart's broken, but it's the same way. Like, Julie's daughter is a senior in high school, and last night was almost her final chorus performance. And it was the same feeling of, they're not mine anymore. It's time for them to grow up. There's always been greatness in Mesa. I disagree with production choices here. But this is going to catapult them to a whole new level. I've warmed to it a little, but if I never have to hear Fire on the Roof or whatever that is again the rest of my life, it's the most un-Mesa. It's like when King Buffalo came out with Silverchair. I'm like, come on, guys. Or Silverfish.
It's interesting when bands make those kind of choices to me. Like Scott, I kind of understand what you're talking about. Like, I was a huge Clash fan growing up, and when Combat Rock came out, it was like fucking such a kick to the balls.
It was.
And it went downhill from there. And I actually saw the Clash on that tour, which was great. But, man, it's like no band has the responsibility to make the album their fans want to hear. And I respect those guys for pushing the boundary. And like you talked about the record company, it is a good deal for them, because, they're a fucking business. They're a businessman. And you know what? The albums I like are selling 300 copies. And so, I'm sure a lot of people roll their eyes at my opinion, and that's fine with me, but I like what I like. So, I mean, I wish I liked this more.
Maybe I like it more than you guys because I don't have the attachment to the older records like you do. And
That would make sense.
Maybe I'm just hearing this with a different point of view and not comparing it to records that meant so much to, what you guys like and what you guys have listened to with the band in the past. There could be something to that.
I think that's legit.
It is the best heavy metal release or general metal release of the year. There's nothing that can touch this artistically.
The kids in my shop who like metal were digging this album. They really liked it.
But it's not even going to make it into my top 10.
Oh, no.
It's not an underground. It's not an underground. They're no longer with an underground label. Metal Blade is a little bit more money than King Volume or Svart, which is where they come from.
So what?
I just think, go ahead.
What defines a heavy underground band at this point?
I was going to ask you. So is Gozu a heavy underground band who is also on Metal Blade? Oh,
yeah. I'm going to have to say Gozu is. I mean, I don't think they have anywhere near the reach. By the way, Rivers of Neil is definitely underground. Like Metal Blade has a lot of credible, Mantar is definitely underground.
Do you guys
Kill
think?
Switch Engage?
Do you guys think Worshipper is an underground band?
Yeah.
Man, see, to me, they just don't fill that bill for me. So they're it's like listening to an 80s album and they didn't bring anything new to the table. And so but I like their album and I'd go see them. But when I listen to it, the next record I put on could be a Def Leppard record or a White Snake record or something. And I don't think anybody in the room would raise an eyebrow.
Well, Scott, I have to go back to what Scott said earlier, just about that they're on a big label now. And that maybe, because I interpreted what you said, that if they're on a big label, then they can't be part of the heavy underground. Is that what I heard?
That's not what I meant, but I mean...
No, that's what I thought.
That's a good point.
Because I want to make sure, because I want to...
A lot of people in the audience, if they're still watching at this point, which is always debatable, because really, the three people they don't really know, right?
I know Bobby Rayfield's watching.
I think this video is going to be a little bit outside of our usual, right? Because Mesa's a big draw right now. What is it? Banger TV.
I'm probably committing channel suicide right now.
No. Are you kidding? No, that would be the earlier content I did. I think it's good. It is fantastic that the lines are now blurred between what is underground and what's not. I think this is an exciting time.
Yeah.
But I'd like to lay out my objection to this album. The first objection I have is Sarah's voice does not need to be tripled with digital delay and potentially auto-tune. I don't hear T-Pain level auto-tune, but Sarah's voice does not need this. And they've made the choice, in the dramatic, crescendo, where she could do it just through her diaphragm. Now technology is taking care of it. That's my first objection. The second objection I have is that Alberto doesn't need to have his guitar parts tripled and quadrupled. There's 4 guitar parts throughout a good chunk of this album where you have the rhythm. They don't need that. They just don't need that. They don't need synthesizer to create atmosphere. Rocco's drums are tame. Thank God he actually screams on Thicker Blood. Thank God, right? And the bass, there's nothing really to say. He's one of the world's best bass players. It's just he is so in the mix that nothing stands out. I don't feel like Messa has to do this, right? But they did it. and it's beautifully done. But I don't know. I feel like they tried to strengthen their strengths. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah.
Rich?
Oh, I don't think that she layered her vocals because she had to. I think that was just what they were going for with this.
I don't think they did. I don't think they made the decision.
Really?
I think that a producer got their hands on Messa. They're on Metal Blade. There's a certain level of performance. There is a certain Metal Blade sound. I don't believe for a minute that Sarah said, ooh, I need to have my vocals tripled, and can I get a little auto-tune here? No way.
How much control do you think a band at that level has in the studio when they're on a label like that?
I think of all the bands, again, Metal Blade, props to them. And again, we're talking out of our ass right now. I can feel people watching rolling their eyes. Look, they wrote, these are Messa songs. These are Messa arrangements. No, you can't, AI probably couldn't fake Messa, or Messa. I keep saying Messa, it's Messa. I don't know how much control they had. Yeah. I really don't. Somebody made a comment. They were trying to find out who produced this, and there's nothing there. Unless I haven't. Dove in deep enough.
It would be interesting, and I hope somebody gets a chance to sit down and talk to those guys, because I would like to have some insight on the decisions that they made in the studio. They're interesting decisions. I don't think because I don't like them doesn't make them bad decisions. I hope everybody understands my position that I'm a little weird. I just don't, just because I don't like it doesn't, I listen to music that not a lot of people listen to. So
this is true.
Yeah. And I think I listen to that and a lot of stuff that people listen to. So I have kind of, again, this gigantic sphere of and like 90s Rich would have been like, they fucking sold out. They added all this stuff to it. They just want to get bigger. They want to but adult Rich is like, number one, right. They signed a Metal Blade for a reason, right? They signed a Metal Blade because they wanted to get bigger. That's what they're trying to do as a band. They're not trying to stay, on those indie labels or the smaller labels that you mentioned earlier. That would be my number one. Number two, like I don't see, and maybe I'm wrong, from what they created before this, I can't see them compromising everything they did there to let some producer come in and ruin whatever they built and wrote in that studio. I would be very, very surprised.
Like Bob Rock did with Metallica and the Black Album, or Fleming Rasmussen did on And Justice for All.
But those guys made a decision to work with Bob Rock and have that record sound the way it did. They made the decision to turn the bass down on Justice for All and not have Jason Newsted be heard there. So, like, I think there's a different dynamic there because those guys wanted to get huge. Metallica didn't bring Bob Rock in because they wanted to redo Ride the Lightning, right? They brought him in because they wanted to be the biggest band in the world, and they thought they could after Injustice for All. So, I see what you're saying about it being overproduced, and I get kind of feeling like a band is your own, and now they're not anymore. But like, I can't fault them for making this big, gigantic album now that they could.
I can't either. I think it's their best.
Well, here's the punk rock perspective on that.
I agree with you.
The biggest sin you could do, making it was the biggest mistake you could make. Making it was like, oh my God, like the worst fucking thing you could do.
Like
and that was based on not compromising what you were doing. And, so like, just because I don't like, I'm always torn on that, right? Because we love this scene. We love to see bands be successful and have a bigger stage. And yet I don't really want that, because I want to go to the show and a little show, and I want to talk to the band after the show. And when I buy a t-shirt, I want to buy the t-shirt from the band. So there's some selfishness in there. And then there's some desire for those bands to do what they're doing. So I don't blame any band for wanting to become bigger. I no longer have that young punk rock attitude where that's a sin. But it probably won't listen to it anymore.
The underground does tend to kill their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least stifle. I think there's very few exceptions. High on Fire is an example of a band that, you know, didn't they win a Grammy? It's like, holy crap. That's a legitimate point, and I'm glad Mesa did it. It's just I have a video out. It's one of my shorts that Stoner Doom is inevitable. That there's going to be commercial breakthrough of a Stoner Doom band. Mesa isn't it.
And it's happening at smaller levels. Sasquatch having music on TV shows and things like that. You know, I think Castle Rat has a far greater chance of breaking literally into the mainstream off of their first album. They've got album 2s coming up, and I have the Kickstarter on it. But I think Castle Rat has an opportunity, at least here in North America, especially nowadays, of really having an impact. Seeing what I see at the shows, girls lining up, waiting for up to 45 minutes. People bringing artwork that they've done to the band. I don't know if I even want that.
But here's the question that I have. And this is probably a way deeper question at 10:21 at night in Eastern time. But like, what does it even mean, and how do you even get in the mainstream these days? Like, is that by you get, like, as Sean mentioned, like a song on a show? Does that mean you're in the mainstream? Or do you get like some viral TikTok video like Bobby from Pentagram? Like, is he in the mainstream now because he had that viral,
Every single kid in my work knows who Bobby Liebling is.
Exactly. So what does that even mean? And does it even mean that your music has becomes important or played on the radio? It doesn't matter if it's played on the radio, right? Do you get in the mainstream because you get to open for Ghost now? Like, what does it even mean to be mainstream? Because it used to be you had a video on MTV,
right,
or you had a song played on the radio, or you had a tour playing for more than 2,000 people in that size of a stadium or arena, whatever you call it. Is mainstream now like a viral TikTok video? I just don't know. Like,
this is a great question.
How does it happen at this point?
This is a great question.
Well, I